Deaths and comics go together like peanut butter, bloody viscera, and what you can only really describe as body jelly. It's a relationship that was cemented the moment the first outline was drawn, and ever since there's been a spectre haunting the pages of our favourite titles which could claim our heroes and villains at any point. Well, at least for a few issues, that is, before they inevitably come back. However, some deaths weren't just shocking, they were bloody begged for, as time and time again we've seen examples of comic book characters that fans loathe bite the big one to rapturous applause. So today, let's take a look back at the heroes and villains that didn't get over with the fans and were rubbed out by the almighty eraser in the sky, as I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 hated comic book characters who were killed off. Number 10, Eric O'Grady, Ant-Man, Secret Avengers number 23. As far as superheroes go, Eric O'Grady was undeniably one of the sketchiest in comic book history, actually committing more criminal actions in his time as Ant-Man than performing heroic deeds. As such, it's likely no surprise that writers eventually sought to kill him off. In an unusual twist, though, they decided to have O'Grady die in a surprisingly heroic way, giving his life to save a young girl after she was kidnapped by a team of supervillains. Eric reaches a point where he knows he isn't going to win the fight against these villains, but carries on anyway, giving it all in order to give her time to escape and going out in a blaze of glory. And yet, for some time after, it did seem that Eric was alive and well, because he showed up in later issues of the series. This, however, proved to be an elaborate ruse and was revealed to be a cyborg copy made by the villains the Secret Avengers were fighting against at the time. Naturally. Number 9, Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider, Spider-Man number 75. Honestly, how rough must it be to be the next Spider-Man chosen to fill the stretchy suit shoes of Peter Parker? Of course the fans are going to have a meltdown. Enter Ben Reilly, the man chosen for the job and who was subsequently demonized by fans of the series. I mean, he looked cool, at least by the standards of the time, but there were very few fans who preferred him to Peter Parker. Eventually, Marvel made the decision to kill Reilly off, having the Green Goblin attach the man to a missile and then sending it flying towards Spider-Man. When Peter dodges the human missile, it leaves Ben careening to his death off the side of a building, and Spider-Man with yet another tragedy to add to his list of internal traumas. While Reilly would later be revived for the Dead No More storyline, there was still a long stretch without him, likely an effort to ensure that when he did come back, that people would have forgotten about the Clone Saga storyline, which had provided so much salt in the first place. Number 8, Lobo. Lobo Volume 4, Number 1. Lobo is kind of character Marmite for the DC universe. While many fans loved him and his over-the-top violent shenanigans, this exact content also left him hated by comic readers who considered him a kind of edgelord byproduct of the 80s. And so when the New 52 reboot happened, the California-based comic company decided to try and revitalize Lobo and create a character who would be less like Marmite and more like, I don't know, jam that everyone would want to sink their teeth into. What they got, though, was kind of neither of those things, as people reacted to the new version of Lobo like they'd been slapped across the face. DC had stripped the character of all of the crudeness and crassness that had made him stand out to begin with, and then, to rub salt in the wound, they had this new Lobo kill the original in his first comic, well and truly damning the new edition to be more despised than his prior run. Number 7, Wolverine. Death of Wolverine. Wait. Before you start setting your keyboards on fire with chat like, but Wolverine is everyone's favourite superhero, he's not hated in the slightest, etc., I'm not saying that at all. However, what I am going to say, and something that we can all agree on, is that at one point in the recent past, there was way too much of Wolverine. He was in movies, he was in comics, he was on goddamn lunchboxes protecting my juice boxes, but as a result of this oversaturation, it meant that people were getting character fatigue. And so Marvel resolved to end this in the most extreme way possible in the Death of Wolverine series, which somewhat unsurprisingly ended with Wolverine dying by being coated in the same adamantium that made his claws, which caused him to suffocate. Though the death wouldn't last long, as Wolverine would be back in under 5 years, it's still worth recognizing that Marvel did put him on ice for a while just to save his reputation, which was slowly leading him down a path that fans were beginning to turn against. Number 6, The Invisible Man, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. While there's no entirely likable characters within the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, seeing as it's all about exploring the flaws of mankind, it stands to reason that the Invisible Man is quite likely the second to worst of them, as he's the one who sells them out to the invading alien forces in order to try and join them. Unfortunately for him, however, in doing so, he hurts Mina Murray, who is beloved by the team's single worst member, that of Mr. Hyde, a cannibalistic monster with exceedingly little regard for human life. As such, Hyde hunts down his new enemy and does, well, let's just say that he does the worst thing one human can do to another, debasing and humiliating the Invisible Man before leaving the scene. It's a tough read. What makes this scene even more haunting is that the Invisible Man's blood is also invisible, that is, until he dies, when it suddenly appears all over Hyde to the shock of his guests and the reader. Number 5. Damian Wayne, Batman Incorporated, number 8. It's so odd to think that while the youngest member of the Bat family is beloved by the majority of comic readers now, that was very much not the case when he was first properly introduced in Batman number 656. The key issue here is that Damian had spent most of his childhood raised by his mother, the villainous Talia al Ghul, who instilled in him both the idea that he was better than everyone else being the son of Batman, and that he was worth nothing unless he was the absolute best at everything he put his hand to. This toxic combination made a child that was equal parts fighting machine and snark dispenser, and Jesus, did it get old quick. But unlike many other disliked characters, Damian was purposefully made so that you'd initially dislike him, all because of a long-term plan to slowly have him realize how his apparent strengths were flaws in the eyes of others, and it also meant that when he finally gave his life to protect his new Bat family in Batman Incorporated, it had a profound impact on the reader. It was a long road filled with fan hatred, but when Damian finally was resurrected later down the line, he had turned the corner with the public and was now welcomed back with open arms. Number 4. Chip, Green Lantern, Mosaic, number 2. Now, while the fluffy squirrel Green Lantern named Chip wasn't loathed to the same degree that characters like Ben Reilly or Damian Wayne were, that didn't stop him from being killed off due to fan resentment. But I mean, honestly, how could anyone dislike a precious creature like Chip? Well, because he was very silly. And don't get me wrong, Green Lantern is a series stuffed with comic asides, but this was just a bit too slapstick for some, with the tone descending into kids' Saturday morning TV whenever Chip was on the page. However, even though fans didn't like him, Chip's death was absolutely brutal. In the second issue of Green Lantern Mosaic, Chip faces a squirrel's natural enemy, a truck. Unfortunately, it's also a truck with yellow lights on, meaning that the critter is unable to use his lantern powers to escape the oncoming 4x4 and is horribly crushed underneath it. Number 3. Most of the Inhumans, Death of the Inhumans. It's entirely unsurprising that people ended up hating the Inhumans, as they were blatantly used to try and replace the beloved X-Men in some bizarre move to spite Fox over their continued use of the X-Men on-screen rights. Because this was done in such a ham-fisted manner, fans instinctively pushed back against it, forming a profound dislike for the Inhumans in general. So when Disney gained the rights to Fox through an elaborate merger, Marvel sought to try and redeem the Inhumans themselves, in a particularly unusual way. And that was, drumroll please, by killing the vast majority of them off. Sorry, what? Death of the Inhumans cut down their number by a considerable amount, having basically every Inhuman bar the main team be wiped off the map, and yet somehow this ended up being an action that a lot of fans actually praised, mainly because it took a lot of guts to wipe out nearly all of the new group. Thus, while it appeared to have doomed the Inhumans within the comics, it actually managed to save their reputation for the time being. Number 2. Most of the X-Force, X-Force number 116. There are few tactics more hilarious or more functional than creating a hero team full of conceited, unlikable characters and then killing them off immediately so that a marginally more likable set of characters can replace them and get to look like saints in comparison. If you like the sound of this, then there's a solid chance that you'd like the X-Force series, later known as X-Statics. The series had an incredibly fast turnover rate and killed its first team almost immediately. It also manages to make the characters that replaced the initial team endearing solely by not being as bad as the first lot, who are much more concerned with their media presence and importance than actually doing anything resembling a superhero's job. It's actually quite brilliant despite the dopey name. And number 1, Jason Todd, Death in the Family. Jason Todd's demise in Death of the Family is without a shadow of a doubt one of the most controversial comic book deaths, and say it with me kids, of all time! Largely because it was one that was entirely down to fans wanting Todd to kick the bucket. Before the comic was made, a phone poll was opened up where fans could call in either to vote to end Todd's life or have him escape his capture at the hands of the Joker unscathed. However, there is controversy over whether the vote was rigged or not, as even comic creator Dennis O'Neil believed that the vote had been altered by one man who'd rigged his phone to vote for Jason to die every couple of seconds for 8 hours. Now that is dedication. Despite this, it's undeniable that there was a thirst to see him die, which is profoundly ironic now given that he's become one of the most popular members of the Bat family now that he's been revived. And there we go, those were 10 hated comic book characters who were killed off. As always, I've been Jules, and go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.